Hey everybody, it's episode 6 of series 2 of UIO, the podcast for teen girls. Hugs to everyone, and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teen girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today we're talking about personal development. Do we need a personal plan? With so many challenges as well as opportunities, it might not be a bad idea. From academic achievement to mastering athletics, developing your personal skills could be the difference in getting the best possible experience not only tomorrow, but also today, regardless of background and experience or how busy you are. To look at how we bring it all together, we've caught up with Robyn Spens, a rapid transformational therapist, nutritionist, and lifestyle coach who supports busy women the world over in transforming their lives. The good news is that Robyn works with teen girls too. Welcome, Robyn.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Robyn, for being our guest today on UIO and talking to me about transforming lives. It seems a bit of a heavy topic for teenagers in general as they are in their youth, when it would be nice to deal with all of that later. But the truth is, teenagers, both girls and boys, have incredibly busy lives with academics, sports, family life, other activities. It's all too easy to find oneself in a situation either in or out of school where life skills can be the difference in a fulfilling experience. So I want to start by finding out what personal development actually means in the context of growing up.
I think personal development covers a broad range of areas that include self-confidence, building self-esteem, developing one's strengths and talents, and improving one's self-awareness, learning about yourself really, and developing emotional intelligence, which, many of us adults have not done yet. So it is very broad. And I think this can be very overwhelming for teenage girls when at the same time there are so many changes happening on many, many levels. So when we think about what's happening physically, mentally, emotionally, and let's not forget hormones are extremely active. And then add on to all of that, friendships, relationships, academic pressures, and of course, social media. So being a teenager is not easy.
No, it isn't. And the thing that you pointed out is girls do have some differences. Girls and boys are different in some areas. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is to really focus on some of the specific things that girls have to deal with. And I think the hormone issue is a big one. And I do think it's so important to point out that life doesn't always go to plan. So I'm not advocating that girls come up with a rigid plan and no matter what, stick to it. But the things that you've just said about what's so important about personal development, your awareness, your self-confidence, and emotional intelligence, all those things. I want to talk about why personal development is so important, without sort of getting yourself really fixed on, I've got to have a plan.
Well, I think personal development is really important because it gives you a sense of who you are. But part of that equation is making sure that girls are educated about the right nutritional things that they should be doing and using those tools that will support a teenage body. And this means eating lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of whole foods, lean proteins, lots of hydration, and, of course, sleep and exercise. And all of these play a part in growing up well and supporting girls in not only their health and wellness, but also I think it plays a big part in psychologically how they're able to cope. And so if you're eating lots of sugar and junk food and all of these things and not sleeping and not exercising, and you do have these things that don't go to plan, you're not able to cope. So it starts there.
That's amazing stuff. And I wish that I had known a little bit of that when I was a teenage girl, because I can see it makes a difference. I want to pick up on something that you said about sleep. Sleep has been said to be food for the brain, and that has to be right. And the research shows that teens need more sleep while they're growing up. Sadly, teens don't always get enough sleep. as you just mentioned, especially during the school week. They're doing their sports, they're doing their academics, they've got their social lives, they're very busy people. And then they might sleep in during the summer and on the weekends. And some of us think, oh, that's just lazy, that's ridiculous. But I'm beginning to understand that their bodies really need that sleep. And I want you to talk to us about why it's important to get enough sleep.
This is a really, really interesting topic, and one that's very much alive at the moment in terms of research and debate. I think teenagers across the board need a lot more sleep. We all do. Poor sleep, it slows our metabolism. It produces intense cravings for junk food. It can sabotage much of the progress you make from a healthy diet. Mm-hmm. Sleep influences so many aspects of our lives. When you go to school, you want to be alert, you want to be able to receptive to what's being taught. And if you're not getting enough sleep, then all of those things just don't happen in the way that you would like them to do. So developing a good basic sleep hygiene is always something that I recommend to teens. Occasionally I do workshops around health and wellness, which is really primarily aimed at teenagers. And I think sleep is a really important part of that. So some of the things, if I may suggest, is really winding down at a reasonable time, 10:30, 11. I know studying is important. Avoiding blue light at night. Turning your phone and your computer to airplane mode has a big impact on how well you sleep. Not eating sugary foods too late. All of these things can really impact not how much you sleep, but how well you sleep. And the quality of sleep is just as important as the quantity.
That's amazing. I mean, you really picked up on some of the things that we've talked about in other podcasts. And this is the social media generation. And so it is so important to consider those tips and take them on board, specifically to do with putting your phone in airplane mode or just turning it off, and putting it away. And I think that's good advice for all of us, not only for teens, but for adults too. And I'm jumping around here a little bit. I know that you've done some amazing work with the Amos Bursary, which supports boys from the Afro-Caribbean community. Can you summarize the sort of workshop that you do and tell us why this sort of development is important for girls too, particularly girls from disadvantaged backgrounds? Though I must admit, you could be living in a middle-class family and just decide to tune out, and just do what you want to do. So I think it's important for all girls.
Well, 8 years ago, I noticed that there were no programs out there that were really focused on young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And part of that was I remembered what it was like for me when I left school. And I come from a background that is not wealthy. And there was no one there to sort of guide me on how to make that transition from teen into the next steps. And so 8 years ago, I developed a professional development workshop for teenage girls and boys. And it was focused on life skill preparation. And these are some of the things that they don't teach you in school unless you go to, a very posh boarding school. Yes. Or a private school where these things are emphasized. And the purpose of developing this program was really to give them a sense of understanding how social skills could support them as they made that transition. And so the workshop, basically, it's an ongoing labor of love. And we look at how to introduce yourself, how to walk into a room, how to network, how to start a conversation.
That's amazing.
And how to end it. And you wouldn't believe how many teens have told me that they find this difficult. And then we do a 3-hour dining tutorial. And the purpose of all of this is to give young people a sense of self-awareness, self-esteem, and mostly confidence. Because when you're confident, when you are in a an unfamiliar environment, it makes it a lot easier to navigate your way through.
I love that. I love the dining. I love it all, but I really can appreciate the dining experience part of that, because that can be so intimidating, even for an adult. If you marry into a family that's quite formal and they're used to all of that, and suddenly you're plopped down in the room and, there's 15 forks and all the different cutlery and that kind of thing. And I think that's amazing. As you said, not everyone will get the opportunity to get that in school or at home, but not everyone will get the opportunity to attend one of your workshops on how to change their lifestyle and how to develop their social skills, particularly if they're in an unhealthy space. And this is a big topic. It could have to do with whether they've got a lot of things going on time-wise. Could have to do with nutrition. You talked about that earlier. They're not necessarily eating right, so they're feeling unhealthy. Body image, self-confidence. It could be economic status. Some of the pressures of growing up in a disadvantaged background. So where do you start transforming your life from whatever space you're in?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think there are a lot of free resources out there in terms of, the piece around social skills. There is the Debrett's. They have an online resource that focuses on a lot of the things that I've mentioned today. Emily Post also has an online resource for many of the things that I mentioned today. In terms of the health and wellness, I think this is a minefield because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And on that note, I think girls have to really tread very, very carefully. I have 2 teenage girls myself. They're slightly older. And I recognize how difficult it is to be in this space and how much social media plays a part in providing information that's will not exactly serve them in many ways. So I think one must tread very, very carefully. And I don't advocate diets, especially for teenage girls, but I think sticking to a whole food lifestyle where things are fresh and cooked and prepared rather than refined foods is the way to go, as opposed to any diets. And I think there are good resources out there. But I think it's a matter of really understanding who you are and understanding what serves you and making those choices based on that. Part of understanding who you are is stepping back, I think, from social media a little bit and really focusing on yourself and really loving yourself and talking to yourself in a way that is nurturing. Because many of us, women and girls, we are very self-critical.
That is fabulous. That's so true. Just being able to take the space that you're in and use your resources. Many of them are in your head. It's mental and emotional, as well as physical. I do want to talk about the physical a little bit because I think that those were really good tips, having a healthy diet, for example. But I know how busy it was to be a teenager when I was a teenager, and that was a very long time ago. And it's ridiculously busy now. I have a 15-year-old niece. She's never home. She's a star athlete. She's good in her academics. Then she's got family life. She's got to study. There's so much. So how do you manage your time?
It is very intense being a teen today. And I think there are enormous pressures to be perfect and to manage all of these things that you've just mentioned. But I think it's worth taking a moment and really being in the moment and thinking about the things that are important. Because sometimes it's okay to say no to all these things too. And saying no is not a negative thing. Saying no is a positive thing to you if you can't handle all the things that you're trying to do. There is a way to do that and to step back and say, yes, I'd love to do X, Y, and Z, but I can't until next week. And I think a lot of young people don't understand that they can say no to all the sort of things that come at them. And it's really difficult. But I think preparation helps.
Yeah.
preparation, preparation, preparation. And if you prepare and you stay in the moment, it makes it easier to cope. And some of the things that you can do are meditation, tapping, deep breathing, just taking a moment to just do 4 square breathing. Breathe out and to breathe in and just center yourself and then go on. These things are important. They're not only important for, I think, the mental space, but they're also important for your body. And I think stress has an impact that, is at the moment we just can't calculate what stress is doing to us on many, many levels. So I think it is important to take a moment to breathe, to regroup, to assess what your priorities are and make decisions based on that. And I know it's incredibly hard, but it's important to start to do that now as a teenager, and these sort of tools will serve you well as you grow older.
Yeah, that's really key. And that's a message for parents as well, because parents can often be very well-meaning, but we hear about pushing their children, really wanting their children to be stars at this and stars at that. And sometimes it's very difficult for a teenage girl, for example, to say no to a parent or say no, to a guardian, because this is something that's become a big part of their lives. And I just think that the points that you made about the importance of recognizing that stress can be quite destructive, that's so important. And I think that's a message for girls and boys for that matter, but also for parents as well. I did a podcast on online well-being. And for today's teen girls, this is a really crucial topic. And you've talked about online well-being in many of your answers. But I'd just like you to talk about it a little bit more from a lifestyle perspective, why it is important to have a healthy balance online.
I think it's important to have that healthy balance online because being online is not always being in the moment.
Yes.
And I think you need to recognize what online is. It is not you. It is online. And it's important for, I think, teenage girls, especially to really understand that they are enough. They are themselves. They will always be enough. And they need to perhaps say that every day. To understand that online is online. It's not their life.
The podcast that I did on online well-being was with a woman called Nicola Morgan. And that really correlates with what Nicola said about if you're spending all this time online, then it means that you're not spending the time with yourself, reading, daydreaming, doing what is important and healthy. And so that helps to strike the balance. So that's really key. That makes a big difference. Robyn, this is the final podcast in Series 2. And I have to tell you, it really beautifully ties all of the podcasts together. I think it goes back to Series 1 as well, because we talked about confidence and some different things in Series 1 and values and so forth and so on. But I do want to further make the connection between personal development, transforming your life, and all the topics we've been talking about. So I want to talk about how is personal development, first of all, related to identity?
Identity, I think many teenagers grow up tackling identity, especially teenagers from mixed backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds who find themselves in a culture that may not be as accepting. And it's really, really difficult. But I think building one's confidence is the key to being able to cope in these situations. Confidence is so important because confidence frees you. There is a freedom in confidence. Thought frees you from worrying about acceptance.
That's good.
It gives you the opportunity just to be in the moment, to be yourself, and to be who you are in all the splendor and beauty. And so this is a difficult topic and perhaps not one that I can put into a few words. But I would say really stop, do some journaling, figure out what's important to you, what are your values. And teenagers do have values.
Yes.
They have incredible values. And start making decisions that are aligned with that.
That's really key. What about personal development as related to your mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah, emotionally and mentally, girls are changing as teenage girls, and it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. And it's really understanding that other people don't define you, you define yourself. And it's very difficult in this day and age with all of these mixed messages that are out there in terms of your mental and your physical health. So I think it's important to really try and stay within a space that you're comfortable with. You know, don't let other people make you feel less than. Don't ever let anybody make you feel that you are not worthy.
And I think it also probably goes back to what you said earlier about stress. Stress is such a big part of emotional and mental well-being and anxiety. You know, having too much of it really affects your emotional and mental health. And I think that's really key, what you said about really sort of being comfortable in your space. And I think I talk a lot about finding joy and happiness in the space you're in as a teenager. And in particular, we're talking about teen girls.
And I might add that, you know, using tools such as meditation and tapping and journaling and gratitude, of course, are all helpful in combating stress. Stress really, really a serious problem throughout society.
How is personal development related to rising above odds? We did a podcast on how girls could rise above odds.
Well, I think, again, you mentioned confidence, and that's part of it. But how do you get confidence, and how do you, maintain confidence? Because every day there are things that knock you, and it's believing in yourself. And I would ask every young teenager who's listening today to get up every morning and look in the mirror and say, "I am enough," and to say that every single day. That helps build your confidence because you are enough. You are enough just as you are.
That's really good stuff for all of us.
I think it is. And, you know, in terms of beating the odds, it's finding someone who believes in you. There are a lot of good mentors out there. I mentor 3 teenage boys and 1 girl. Finding people who believe in you and believe in your story and believe in your dreams and your visions, and linking with those people. You know, just asking them, Will you mentor me? And finding people who are doing the things that you aspire to do and really reaching out to them. I think finding role models who are following a path that you'd like to follow are important. And these are the things that help you rise above the odds. You know, really working on yourself. There are a lot of self-help books out there which can help you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. But finding people who believe in you, who will sort of pick you up when you're feeling a little bit down, are important. And every day, look in the mirror. I do it. And I tell myself, I am enough, just as I am. And it works.
That's really good. We did our podcast on dating, a big topic for all teenagers. But again, particularly, we're focusing on teen girls. And I would just like to connect the importance of personal development with dating. How is it related to dating?
Yeah, that's a minefield of a question. Having had 2 teenage girls and, you know, navigating that whole space, it is an emotional roller coaster for many. But I think, you know, be who you are. Don't be intimidated to do things that you don't want to do. Really look at the character of the person that you're thinking about dating. Don't date just because of someone's special in other people's eyes. They need to be special in your eyes and special in how they treat you. And let that always be the guidance. How a person treats you is very, very important. And how they treat others is really, really important because that's a mirror of the exchange that you will have with that person. So it's really, really important to take your time to make considered decisions. And if it doesn't feel right, you don't have to do it.
I think that it's amazing because, again, reaching back to series 1, we did a podcast on peer pressure. Then coming back to the dating podcast, these were just such key messages that you don't have to, rush into something, because if you do, there are consequences to decisions that are not necessarily informed and considered decisions. And there's so much out there. It's in the media, it's on social media, it's everywhere. That's sort of chivvying you along to go with the trends and to be a part of what everybody else is doing.
Follow your intuition. There is a thing called the gut brain, and there's a reason that when things don't feel right, our tummy sometimes, feels a little bit sort of butterflies in our tummy.
Yeah.
And it's called the vagus nerve. It's the nerve that connects from the brain to the gut. And the gut brain is alive. Follow your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, then step away from it.
That's so key. That's really good stuff. You've given us so many tips, but I'm going to ask you if you've got any more hot tips that you'd like to share with our teen girls on how to develop their full potential from a lifestyle perspective.
I think just rounding up some of the things that we've talked about, be in the moment, reach out to people if you need help. Life is difficult. It's very, very difficult juggling social media and all the other things that teenagers have to do. And I think don't fear not being able to cope. No one is perfect. No one can do everything. And we have a lot of teenagers who feel that they have to be perfect. You don't. Slow down. Make considered decisions. Say no when you have to. And most of all, be kind to yourself in the way that you speak to yourself. Don't use words like, I'm stupid. You should have did it this way. You should have done it that way. Be kind in your self-talk. This is a tool that's really important when you're young, because if you use unkind words to yourself now, you will take those habits into adulthood. And you don't want to do that, because self-criticism holds us back. And so learn the lesson early to be kind to yourself. If you make a mistake, it's okay. You made a mistake today, and you'll do better tomorrow. But don't use unkind words towards oneself.
This is great. It's a very basic message, but so many times people don't get that message. And so that's so important. And I think, wrapping it up, it really comes down to you're enough. I am enough. And I think that's really great. Thank you so much, Robyn, for being our guest today on UIO. We've had a great time, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to get so much information from this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
That is a wrap for UIO on personal development. Really inspirational show with Robyn Spens. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. As we close out this series, my prayer is that all teen girls, regardless of race, creed, color, economic status, will have the opportunity to develop their full potential. I pray for their personal development, instilling confidence and high self-esteem in them, crucial to self-acceptance, mental well-being, overcoming hurdles, dating, and enjoying the teen girl space. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. That completes Series 2, bringing us full circle. We'll have more podcasts for you in 2019. Meanwhile, enjoy these and stay in touch. Hit me up on Twitter at Sonja Lewis, Instagram at Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook on thisandthat.co.uk. Tell me what you want to hear about on UIO, and keep sending those questions on any of the episodes. Take care of you inside out, and remember,